Burke-Gilman Trail. It can feel like the popular route for pedestrians, bikers, and joggers has always been a part of Seattle, from Ballard to Kenmore and beyond. It's one of the city's best-known public parks for people-powered transportation.
So we're standing within 2 blocks of most of the people who worked on the Burke-Gilman Trail in the beginning.
The trail is well known. The story of how people power made it possible, not so much.
I'm Meryl Hilla, and I live down the street 1 block. And Jim Todd, who was the first one to speak with Mayor Ullman in his office, lived right here on the corner. This has really become a very important part of Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
50 years ago, Meryl Hilla and Jim Todd were neighbors in North Seattle. They lived near Matthews Beach, but in between the neighborhood and the park were some seldom used railroad tracks that dated to the 19th century.
A single track railroad, which ran about once every, 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe a 1 or 2 car train would chug through here for many years.
We lived right within vision of the train, and our kids ran to the window to see it every time it went by.
It was 1970, and a TV program about civic activism inspired Jim, Meryl, and a group of like-minded neighbors to take on a project. With changes ahead for the railroad, there was no question what the project should be.
Because we knew that the railroad was getting ready to abandon the right-of-way, and it seemed to us such a natural that it become a hiking and biking trail.
The neighbors formally organized and began an old-school grassroots campaign, printing a brochure and spreading the word person to person.
We made contacts with the mayor and the county executive and tried to get interest from the local governments in doing this, which they didn't jump into it immediately. It took a little ongoing conversation and encouragement till it became something that they were very interested in.
The neighbors found an ally and champion in Seattle Mayor Wes Ullman. It was the Boeing bust and times were tough. But that didn't matter, as Ullman explained to Cairo Radio in 2017.
The city was broke. We were laying off fire, police personnel. And so some of the protests were saying, we need what little money there is, Mr. Mayor, to be for important things instead of trails. But I felt very strongly that this was almost a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have a trail go through the middle of Seattle.
I was meeting with the mayor frequently, since I was the only one who had a flexible job and a flexible babysitter. So I met with him frequently to talk about our progress, and one day he told me I had to make a hike-in.
The hike-in was a rally on September 12, 1971 that helped galvanize public support. But the city still needed to make a deal with Burlington Northern for the real estate before the old tracks could become a trail. Jim Todd knew the history of the 19th century rail line that was originally called the Seattle, Lakeshore, and Eastern.
When this railroad was first formed, it was donated land from residents of Seattle, donated to the railroad, because the residents of Seattle wanted to be connected to interstate commerce across the country. And originally our pitch was that the railroad should now donate it back to the citizens of Seattle.
And it was a history book that inspired the group to name the trail for railroad founders Daniel Gilman and Judge Thomas Burke.
We were reading a book called Judge Burke, He Built Seattle, and a number of us had read that book, and we were up at Stelberg Tighes when all 3 of us yelled, it's going to be the Burke-Gilman Trail. And it became that.
And that's pretty interesting, and it stuck.
Finally, a deal was struck. The tracks would be replaced with a trail. It would take a few years to fully pave, but for Meryl Hilla and Jim Todd and other families in their neighborhood, one benefit was almost immediate.
Well, this was the access for everyone on the other side of Sandpoint Way. This was the access to Matthews Beach Park. And no one really thought, I don't think, too much about it. That's just how you got to Matthews Beach. You walked across this bridge, which was a railroad bridge at the time.
Well, there was no railing, so we had our kids walk between the tracks so they wouldn't fall over. They just ran ahead. They were happy. Well, Jim, it's really nice to be back to the park.
But helping create the Burke-Gilman Trail was never just about helping themselves. It was about creating a one-of-a-kind public space for fun or for getting to work. It was about laying the foundation for what's become a priceless network of trails for everybody.
It is very gratifying It just makes you feel good that there's a trail for them to be riding on.
I'm very proud.
I am too. This is probably the crowning achievement of my life.
Yeah, same to me. The more crowded it is, the happier I am.
Watch CityStream Thursday nights at 7 on the Seattle Channel, or get video on demand and podcasts anytime at seattlechannel.org.